Hello friends, in today's video I'm going to be showing you how to make this really beautiful easy hood. If you have not yet done so, please hit the subscribe button, notification bell, and give this video a thumbs up. Feel free to leave me a comment down below as well. Now this hood is fairly easy to work up. It is only 20 rows. So let's go ahead and jump into the materials that we will be needing for today's video. Today's materials are pretty easy. You will want about 300 yards of 4-weight yarn. This is a a Pound of Love yarn from Lion brand. I will not be using all of this, but that's what I'm using today. It is a 4-weight yarn. The hook size I'm using is an I 5.5 millimeter hook. You will want a pair of scissors, something to cut your yarn, a stitch marker. You just need one, and it's one. To begin this project, we want to start with a slip knot, and then we want to chain 35. So yarn over, pull that through, yarn over, pull through. Do that 35 times, and I'll meet you back here. Once you have your chain of 35, go ahead and kind of put 3 more chains, 1, 2, and 3. Now into the 5th chain from your hook, you are going to place a double crochet. So not counting the one that we're working with right now, we're going to count over 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5. So I've yarned over, and we are going to place a double crochet right back into this space right here. And then we are simply going to work 1 double crochet into every stitch until you get to the very last one, and then meet me back here. This is what it looks like once you get done. This chain right here does count as a stitch, so go ahead and count. Make sure that you have 34 stitches in total. Now into this last stitch, we are actually going to place 2 more double crochets, and then we're going to start working our way back along the other side of our chain. So continuing on, we've already made our last stitch. We are going to go back into that same space and make a double crochet. At this point, I recommend popping your stitch marker in to that stitch right there. And then go ahead and place 1 more double crochet back into that same space. Now, working back along the other side, we are going to place double crochets. So you see, this is where we were working into. We're going to go into this next space right here and make a double crochet. I like to work a stitch or 2 over my tail. It just makes it easier when you go to sew in later. So as you see, each of these little spaces, let me get a little closer, see if we can get that focus, right here, 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 here. That's where we're going to be making our double crochets. So I'll make 1 more here with you guys. And if you count from the stitch marker, we have 1, 2, 3. You want to have 24 in total going along the other side. Then I'll meet you back here for the end of round 1. Perfect. So this is the end of round 1. We went ahead and worked all the way around. Now we're going to go ahead and work all the way back. So we're going to chain up 3 to begin round 2 and turn our work. Now this does count as a stitch, so we are not going to work back into this space here. This counts as our first stitch. So we're going to yarn over, and we are simply going to do double crochets into the back loop only. So if you see the top here, we have our front and back. We're just going to go through that back loop, and we are going to place 1 double crochet into every single stitch until we get to our stitch marker. Alright, so you should have worked a total of 34 double crochets. Now here into the 35th double crochet where we have our stitch marker, go ahead and pull that out, and we are going to work 3 double crochets into the back loop of that stitch. So that's 1, 2, and 3. Now, just for a couple rows, we're going to need the stitch marker, but not all the way through. So go ahead and add your stitch marker into the third double crochet that you just made into that space. And then go ahead and work 1 double crochet all the way down. Once you get to this last chain 3 space, you can just go ahead and work in there. So go ahead and finish round 2, and I'll meet you back here for row 3. At the end of row 2, you should have a total of 71 stitches. Now, moving on to round 3, it is going to change just a little bit. So we're going to chain up 3 stitches, and again, this does count as our first stitch. And we are going to turn our work. We're going to skip this first stitch, and into the next stitch, we are going to work into the back loop only. So into this next stitch, we're going to work a double crochet into the back loop, just like that. Sorry, my stitch marker is dragging on the bottom there. Okay, so once you do that, into the next stitch, we're going to work a double crochet into the front loop of that stitch only. Okay, so only into the front loop. And the next stitch, we will work a double crochet into the back loop. So this is going to be what we're going to do all the way up to the middle. And then into the next stitch, we will work 1 stitch into the front loop only. So 1 double crochet into that front loop only. Go ahead and do that all the way until we get to our stitch marker, and then I'll kind of show you how we're going to work our increase working the same stitch pattern. So we're still in row 3, and here I'm at my stitch marker. You should have just finished with a front loop only. Now go ahead and take your stitch marker out, because we're going to increase again in this row. Now, because we just did a front loop, we are going to go ahead and do 1 double crochet into the back loop of this stitch. Now back into that same stitch, we're going to work a double crochet into the front loop only. So then we're going to go into the front loop of that stitch and work 1 double crochet. Okay, now we need to work 1 more double crochet, but we want to keep it kind of going in the same pattern. So you can see the back of the stitch where we had worked this one. That is also where we are going to work this one. So we're going to work into that same stitch, but into the back loop only. Okay, now go ahead, and as you see, there are our 3 stitches. We are going to place this right into the middle. Oops. So place that into the middle stitch. Now we're going to continue back along. So we are going to, since we just did a back loop, into the next stitch, we're going to work into the front loop. And then into the following stitch, we'll work into the back loop only, and we'll just continue that all the way back down for the rest of row 3, then meet me back here for round 4. At the end of row 3, you should have a total of 73 stitches all the way around. Moving on to row 4, we are going to do the same thing for row 4 and row 5. So we are going to chain up 3 as our first stitch. We are going to turn. Now this is our repeat row, okay? So when we go back through, you can see that the ones that we had done are a little popped out. These are worked on the front stitches, right? So what we want to do is we want to kind of work the same pattern. We're going to skip this first stitch, but into the following, as you see, it's kind of popped closer to us. We're actually going to go ahead and work into the back loop only on that stitch. Okay. Now moving on to this next one, you see it's pushed a little bit further back, and we have this little loop right here in front of us. So that's how we know that's one was worked in the back. So we want to work that stitch in the front. Okay. Once you get that first stitch done though, you should be good to go. So we just did a front loop, so now we're going to do a back loop. You can see it's kind of pushed closer to us, so then we're going to work into the back loop only. So this is row 4. Continue to do that until you get up to the stitch marker. We will be increasing right here in the middle for 2 more rows. So go ahead and I'll show you how to do that once we get up to the stitch marker for row 4. So we are still on row 4. To do the increase right here, we just ended up with a double crochet into the back loop only. So For the middle stitch, we will place 1 double crochet into the front loop only. And then we will place a double crochet into the back loop only. Let's see if I can get that to focus. You can see it right here. So we will go, oops, into that stitch, pull up, make a double crochet, and then we will do another one right here into the front stitch only where we worked our first double crochet. Just make sure that you're going only through that one loop. And that is our increase for this row. Go ahead and place your stitch marker into the second, so the middle stitch there, the one that's in the back, and continue along for the end of row 4 until you get to the end. At the end of row 4, you will have 76 stitches, and then you want to repeat this one more time for row 5. At the end of row 5, you will have 78 stitches. We're going to do the same thing. We are going to work our increase right here in the middle. Now, when you turn your work and you go back, since, you know, it changes every row, when you flip, when you have the one that's poked closest to you, you work into the back of the loop. So when we get to the end of this row here, when we get to the end of row 4, and then we turn, I believe we'll start with a back post double crochet. So just keep an eye on that. I hope that makes sense. If it doesn't, please leave me a comment down below so that next time I try to explain this type of stitch pattern, I can do it a little bit better. But so continue down for row 4, chain up 1, chain up 3, and then work the same thing. If you need to rewind row 4, go ahead and do that. Remember, it's going to be a little different because each time we turn our work, we will be working the opposite. So we want to work front loop stitches on the previous row's back loop stitches. So go ahead and do row 5, go ahead, double count your stitches at the end of row 5, make sure you have 78 stitches, and then meet me back here at the beginning of row 6. This is what it should be looking like. Like I said, at the end of row 5. So we have done 5 rows. Now we're going to chain 3, turn our work, and we are done increasing right here in the center. So if you want, you can go ahead and take that stitch marker out. Now we are going to start increasing in the first and the last stitch over here. So into this first stitch, we are simply in this space. Let's see, we've got our front post right here. We are going to go into the back loop only of our first. Excuse me, it's not a front post, it is a front loop. Let's see, there we go. Okay, so as we see that our stitch is pushed a little bit closer, this next one is going to be into the front loop only. Remember, every time we turn our work, we're alternating. Right here, we see that it's in the back, so we've done a back loop, a front loop, we're going to do back loop, front loop. We're going to do that all the way. Now our increase on this row was when we worked back into that same stitch that we normally don't work into. That right there was our first increase. So when you get to the other side down here for the end of row 6, let's see, this will be a back loop. So then you'll actually just work 2 stitches right here, right into this. Doesn't have to be front or back, but you'll go ahead and do that. At the end of row 6, you will have 80 stitches. So go ahead and work row 6, and I'll meet you back here for row 7. Here we are at the end of row 6, and as you see, it's starting to form. Now moving on to row 7, like I said, we finished with an increase right there. We're going to do another row of increase. So chain up 3 and turn your work. And I always just kind of like to pop this like that when I work. It just makes it a little easier. Now increasing again, we are going to work a stitch back into the same stitch right here. Okay. Now as you see in this stitch right here, we do have a front loop double crochet. So in this next one, we know we're going to want to work into the back loop here. So into this next one, we are going to work into the front loop So go into this space right here, yarn over, go through 2 and go through 2. Now moving on to the 4th stitch, so we have 1, 2, 3. In our 4th stitch on row 7, we are going to work into the back loop only. Okay, so continue to do our alter front and back loop only. Next one will be front loop, back loop, and like I said, we are no longer increasing right here. So just continue to work that all the way around until you get to your last 2 stitches, and then row 8, we will move on to that next. Round 8, we are not going to be increasing, so we will chain up 3, and then we are not going to work back into the same space. We are going to work into the following. So we are going to start with a back loop only, and then we're going to continue to work our stitch pattern. So into the next stitch, we will work a front loop only, and just as we have been. So just remember that we're doing our little fun stitch pattern here. So go ahead and do round 8. Do not increase. Work 1 double crochet into every single stitch, and this is going to begin our increase. Okay, so I'm going to try to put some text up here on the screen. Okay, so for row number 8, we will have a total of 82 stitches at the very end. We are not increasing. Row 9, we are going to be increasing at the first and the last of the stitches. First and the end of the work, like we've been doing. We will have 84 stitches at the end of row 9. Row 10, we are not going to increase. We will do 1 into every single stitch, so that one will be 84 as well. Row 11 will be an increase row. We will increase at the beginning and at the end of every stitch there, so let's do 86. Row 12 will not be an increase row. We will end with 86 stitches as well. Row 13, we will end with 88 stitches, and that will be our last increase row. So meet me back when you get done working row 13. Also, please note that while we're working through this, we are working the stitch pattern, and I hope it is not too confusing. We are alternating between the back and the front loop. If it was worked in a front loop on the last row, then we are working into the back of the stitch. As you see here, it's a little bit pushed back, so then we are going to work onto the front part of that stitch. Keep that in mind as you are working through this pattern. So go ahead and work. This is what our hood is looking like so far when you finish row 16. Now go ahead and count your stitches. Okay, so go ahead and count all your stitches when you get done with row 16. Row 16 should not have been an increase. It was just a standard row, okay? This is what it looks like when you have it laid out how we've been working it. Now you will have a total of 88 regular stitches plus this chain space. Now you'll see why that will be a little different. But as for now, we are going to do row 17 just a little bit differently. We are going to chain up 3, turn our work, and now what we want to do is double crochet into every single space. Okay, so into this next one, we are going to go through both loops. Okay, so just a regular double crochet into every single stitch all the way around. No increases, no front loops, no back loops, just a regular regular double crochet row. So go ahead and do that, and I'll meet you back here for row 18, which is the beginning of the border. We only have 3 more rounds left after this, you guys. Row 18 is where we switch it up. So we are not going to work into this chain 3 space. We're just going to skip that. And now we are going to chain up 3 and turn our work. Now we want to have, we're going to start working front post double crochets. This is still going to count as our first stitch here. Now front post double crochets, I'm just going to show you guys. You see our crochet stitch here, double crochet. Normally we work through here. To do a front post double crochet, you go from the front to the back, or around the back and back out. You draw up your yarn and you pull it through. you yarn over, pull through 2, and yarn over and pull through 2. There are quite a few videos out there. I will try to do more on how to do that. But that's going to be our first one. And now we want to place one more front post double crochet into the next stitch right here. So I'll do that a little bit slower. So from the back, around out through the front, pull your yarn through and finish your stitch. Okay, so this is going to count as our first 3 front post double crochets. Into the next 2 stitches, we are just going to work regular double crochets. So right through both of the loops. Here is our first, and again, regular. Okay, so this is the repeat for row 18. We're going to do 3 front posts, 2 regular, 3 front posts, 2 regular. So now into our next stitch, we are going to make a front post double crochet. Into the next stitch, front post double crochet. Into the third stitch, front post double crochet. And then into the following 2 stitches, make sure you're not going into like the stitch of your front post, but in the next 2 stitches, make 1 double crochet, standard, regular, into each one of those. Just like that. Okay, so go ahead and repeat this all the way around your hood until you get to the other side, and you should end with 3 front post double crochets. Meet me back here for row 19. All right, so finishing row 18, you end with 3 front posts. Now you just can go right over that chain space. Now we will chain up 3 and turn our work, working row 19. To start row 19 is going to be a little bit different. So our chain 3 will count as a stitch, but now where we have these stitches that look like they're a little further away from us, those are the ones that we'll be doing our regular double crochets. And then the 2 that are popping closest to us, those will be our front post double crochets. So not into this stitch here, but into this next one is where we will place a normal double crochet through both of the stitches. Into this next one, you can see it still looks further away from us. That's where we'll go through both of the loops. Right here we have the 2 that are popping out closest to us. Those are going to be our front post double crochets. There's 1 and 2. Okay, so on 19, it's 2 front posts and then 3 regular stitches. So you see these ones are kind of further away from us. These are going to be the 3 that we will just do 1 regular double crochet. Sorry, I keep putting my finger over the stitches and it makes it hard to see. And if you guys ever need to zoom in, if you're on your phone, you can always go like this and it'll zoom in on the video a little bit more. Okay, so go ahead and work round 19, 3 regulars, and then 2 front posts. And then I will meet you back here for our final round, which is row 20. Row 20, chain up 3. Turn your work. This is going to be our final row before we attach our not pom-poms, but tassels, before we attach our tassels. Now moving on to this row, the ones that are popping closest to us, we are going to do our front posts into those. So row 20 will be 3 front posts and 2 regular. So the ones that are kind of further away, we will do regulars through both loops, right there and right here. Right here into these 3, we are going to do our front posts. So go ahead and do that, just work that stitch there You can add more rows if you want your border to be thicker. It's up to you. At this point, this is kind of what we have going on right now. Pull it up a little bit. And then once you add your tassels, this kind of helps pull these down. So go ahead and finish row 20. And this is the final product once you get done with row 20. Now go ahead and make your tassels. Go ahead and click the link right above here. I do have a video on how to make these. Now you can make this shorter or longer if you'd like. And then when I attach, I just simply go into the chain 3 space and tie them on. Simple as that. Well, I hope you enjoyed today's tutorial. Please make sure to give this video a thumbs up, subscribe to my channel, hit that notification bell so you get notified when I release really new, awesome, fun crochet tutorials like this, and it does help my channel out. Please leave a comment down below. Let me know if you enjoyed this video, and I will see you guys all next time here on Dream9 Designs Corner on YouTube.